Hey everybody, it's ProcureTech time. So welcome to another episode of the Road to the ProcureTech Cup. This is episode 20. We've got something special planned for you today, the first supplier risk management solution on the show, Craft, today. But before we get there, I'm going to bring my co-host on, Gabe Perez. We'll get some pleasantries out of the way. How's it going, Gabe?
Good morning, Joel. How are you?
I'm good. I think you've been up for a while today, I understand.
Yeah, no, my 3-year-old decided to wake up at 2:30 this morning, so I'm hoping these supply chain risk guys can help me with a little risk management at home. So we'll see what I learned today.
Hopefully so. So we'll get straight into it. Just a reminder, everybody, we're on the road to the ProcureTech Cup. So we're finishing up the last couple of weeks here of regular season demos, so to speak. So we've been going at it since September, and we've got about 7-8 weeks left before we get to the tournament, which happens in March. And I've got a special piece of information today. So I did announce on LinkedIn a couple days ago that I was giving away 10 free spots for the tournament piece of the puzzle, right? So we've got 25 ProcureTech companies that are demoing their solution, but 64 are participating in the tournament. And the spots are going on sale next week, February 12th, or in 2 weeks, I should say. But in the meantime, I want to give a special shout out, special privilege to early stage startups. So if you're in the ProcureTech world, you're working on something bleeding edge, you're pre-funding, you've got a small team, you want to get your name out there, apply to this, and you send an email to my personal email, joel@pureprocurement.ca. I'll say it again, joel@pureprocurement.ca. You can find it on my LinkedIn profile. You can also just type it out. If you're close to this criteria but not quite, apply anyways. And we might not have 10 that fit this criteria, right? So I'll give it first come, first serve to whoever signs up here. And otherwise, I'm going to welcome our folks here, and we'll get to the agenda. So we've got Piers, Director of Solution Engineering, and Seb Butt, Head of Business Development at Craft. Thanks for being here, guys, and we're really excited to see your solution.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us, Joel and Gabe, and we're really looking forward to the session today.
Beautiful. Piers, I think you're still on mute there, so we'll let you get that sorted. We'll get to the agenda here. So we'll let you guys give us a company overview, demonstrate your unique value proposition and your ideal customer profile, right? What does this solution do? What's the value and who's it for? Then we'll dive straight into your solution demo, see how the magic happens. We'll have the Let's Get Real segment, as we do every week, with Gabe asking some tough questions of how do we make this actually work in real life. And then we'll map it to the ProcureTech market map to wrap up. So that being said, Seb, I think you're already sharing your slides, so we'll get straight in and give you the floor.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone who's joined on this session, and again, thanks Joel and Gabe for having us on. We've been excited about the ProcureTech Cup now for a number of months, so good to finally be here. So for today's session, we'll tell you a bit about Craft to begin with, and then we'll talk more about what we do. Craft is a SaaS application. We have been built, we founded the company in 2016, launched our product in 2018, and as I said, it's a SaaS application that primarily focuses on helping our clients with supply chain risk and resilience. We have a little bit more than 70 enterprise and government customers. Our team is around 65 people now, distributed around the world, with our head office in San Francisco, and we've raised venture capital from some of the funds listed on the screen there, and we're at our Series B stage. Just, I guess, wanted to show this as kind of part of our extended family. This is our board of directors and advisory board, and on the left-hand side, you'll see some of our investors, and also you'll see some folks that we've been working with for a number of years. People like Sam Parmesano, the ex-CEO and chairman of IBM, Freddie Kerrist from Okta, and this is just having those folks to hand has been fantastic to help shape and build our product. And then the technology. And on the right-hand side, you'll see people that have come from the domain. So people who have worked in organizations such as Johnson & Johnson and Colgate-Palmolive and Unilever, who have really helped us to understand exactly where we should be focusing our efforts when we're looking at supply chain risk and resilience, having access to obviously case studies and things that they've experienced in the past, so we can build the right kind of technology with the domain in mind moving forwards. Some of our example customers, we have two pretty significant channels. Enterprise customers are listed, or some of our enterprise customers listed here on the left-hand side, and then we also have a very large footprint within federal government, both in the US and also further afield, and we work with a large number of agencies there as well. So I wanted to kind of spend some time and walk you through how Craft delivers value and supports our customers and what our vision is for supply risk management. So at the foundation of what we've built and spent many years focusing on has been our data fabric. And there's three critical layers to the data fabric. Firstly, internal data, and that's information that is coming from your spend management systems, ERP systems, P2P systems, PLM, and it could be things such as your BOM, your spend performance, your inventory, and other key data metrics. We call this first party data, and what lives in your platforms. We then combine that critically with the second piece here, which is the external data and events. And that we've done through Craft building its own ways of gathering unstructured data from all over and difficult to access parts of the web, but also partnering with some best of breed data partners out there as well. And that covers topics such as geopolitical issues, foreign influence, cyber risk, news events, and much more. And you'll see some of this when we get to the demo with peers in a few moments. And then finally, the last piece here is the supplier data, and that could be information that could be in your TPRM systems, your GRC systems. It could be information that you've surveyed over time. And our job at Craft has been to make a really robust data fabric, which acts as the foundation for everything else that we want to do and are also building as we speak into the future as well. So firstly, the rich data foundation powers our proprietary knowledge graph, which connects the dots for your entire supply chain. It maps relationships, it looks at company ownership structures, it looks at key personnel, products, and even geographic locations. And it highlights critically supplier to supplier relationships as well. So you can help you understand, actually, if I know who my tier one suppliers are, of course I do. I contract with them, but who are they buying things from? And often some of those risks are hidden deep into the tiers, and that's something that we help uncover as well. Next, we have the intelligence engine that kind of sits on top of the knowledge graph, and that uses proprietary AI that we've been building for quite some time, and it helps with predictive models to give you deeper insights, evaluates risks such as severity, materiality, proximity, and probability, and it helps you to understand the potential impact on your supply chain. And then finally, what we're working towards, and very excited to kind of share this with those on this call today, is where we're heading. Of course, I think all of us have heard about this giant shift towards agentic technology, and that's exactly the direction that our customers would like us to go as well. And it's all about how you consume the data and focus on the outcomes of all this information that we gather and all this detailed knowledge graphs that we built. The agentic technology, we hope, is going to make it much easier for our customers in time to be able to both collaborate, but also quickly get to the outcomes that they want to achieve through a supplier risk management solution. So,
Seb, if I can ask a question here. So on the slide before, you had a pretty interesting mix of customers, everyone from highly regulated industries like financial services and insurance to hardcore supply chain companies. You keep using the word supply chain risk, but there's also third-party management. You have a very diverse set of verticals there. So for the people listening, what is your ideal customer profile? When you say supply chain, do you mean they have to have a physical supply chain, or do you mean the supply chain of the suppliers, the supplier to supplier relationships? I think some clarity around who the ideal customer profile would be helpful for the audience.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Abe. And it's both. We've been built and designed to manage both the indirect and the direct supply chains. So working with those that keep the lights on, as well as those that you're relying on to make sure that you get your components or services to make the products that you want to distribute. And so we've done that intentionally, and we do appreciate that there is differences in what information is needed for indirect versus direct suppliers. And that's one of the reasons why we built up to having around 75 different data partners now, which we believe is the most comprehensive data partner dictionary in some respect out there. But that's because in some ways, Craft solution for each customer is a la carte, and it depends upon what they're trying to solve for.
Okay, thank you.
Great stuff. So wanted to touch on the use cases just before we get into the demo. The three core areas that we support our customers with, and I guess where our solution is very popular. On the first column here, know your suppliers. So helping you evaluate your supplier's health. This could be through pre-qualification. This could be through onboarding or due diligence checks. This could be through, or it could be to support regulatory requirements such as CSDDD, UFLPA, and CSRD. And I'm sure there's many more of those coming up as well. And that's where we've also, as I mentioned earlier, kind of combined some of that external data with data that lives in your systems. So that's our first use case. The second one is ongoing monitoring or continuous monitoring. That's where we're making you aware of issues from over 40 different categories of types of alerts that we are tracking and letting you know if something significant has happened that you need to know about. And through various parts of the technology, you're able to add in your context. So the alerts or the information that you receive is perfect for your business, perhaps not for anyone else, and that's because you've customized it through the Craft platform for your industry, for your sector, for your number of suppliers, and many other parameters.
And so, like on that scenario, right? I know that at least for my clients, it's a highly popular one, but I'm wondering, like, what kind of effort do you have to put into to get to that highly customized experience, right? Because the fear a lot of the time before people engage with this is, oh, I'm going to get, like, at the beginning, you know, hundreds and hundreds of alerts, and I'm going to have to manage this on a day-to-day basis. So how are you helping clients get over that initial hump?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. With over 70 customers now and customers in several different sectors, we have a customer success team, and every one of our customers has a dedicated customer success manager who will share with them what we've seen with others. And they are able to use that as maybe a starting point. And of course, we can then fine tune over time, but full support given through the onboarding process. Craft's been designed to be relatively turnkey. We love our friends who are consultants, and we work with many of them, but generally speaking, the solution has been designed so that you can get going, but there are ways that you can customize it over time, and we'll give you that support.
All right, cool.
Fabulous. And then the last one, end-tier illumination. I'm sure this is something that those on the call have heard about over the last couple of years. Absolutely an area where you spent a ton of time working on. And this is, as I said earlier, helping you understand the dependencies and risks that are in your entire supplier network. We will help you determine what the supply network is, who are those suppliers, which can often be a challenge in itself. We'll help you prioritize relevant suppliers because you don't want to be mapping and monitoring all of those sub-tier suppliers. That's not going to help anyone, but so we'll help you to prioritize. And then finally, that will lead you to be able to start to see disruptions weeks ahead, perhaps even before your tier one suppliers are going to know about it. Fantastic. And then we've already touched on the personas and everyone else we support, but I will now hand over to Piers.
Excellent. Thanks,
Awesome.
Seb.
And if we can get the slide deck back up just for one moment, there's one slide Piers is going to use to intro in. There we go.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Great to see you, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you. Yeah, great. So I'm going to be walking you through Craft and the application, and I'm going to be a strategic sourcing director in my spare time for a global auto manufacturer, and specifically in electronics. And what I'm going to do as I walk through the application is really show you how Craft helps you to not just solve acute problems that come up in the supply chain, which many solutions do. We do that, but we also help you to secure your supply for tomorrow as well. And what that means really is that we can take issues and risks that we see now, and then look at the implications of what those might be elsewhere in the supply chain in the future. So yeah, just wanted to use that to set things up, and then I can go ahead and share my screen.
And as you're getting the screen set up, Seb, about what split in your customers is using it for indirect versus direct versus enterprise-wide?
Yeah, I would say about 50-50 in terms of direct and indirect in terms of our customer base today.
And some of your customers are using it enterprise-wide as well for both indirect and indirect inside there?
So
company?
yeah, absolutely. On the indirect side, I would say it's broader. When it comes to the direct, it's usually more supply chain focused as opposed to enterprise wide.
Okay.
But on
Great.
the
All
the
right,
indirect
so
side,
we'll bring up the screen here. Piers, I've just, are you ready to demo?
I am,
All right,
absolutely.
let me bring it up here. So you're live, you can go ahead.
Excellent. Thanks, Joel. So here I am, and I'm not in the Craft application yet. I'm actually in my email, as you can see, which is where a lot of people start their day. And I'm going to spare you my recent inbox, but you know, as a sourcing manager, one of the first things I do is I go in and I check my email, and I get daily digest emails from Craft about things that are going on inside the supply chain that I'm responsible for. And so what's happened today is I've seen something particularly interesting that has led me back into the application through one of these links that you see here. And if I hop back in there, I'll show you what that was. So what it'll do, as soon as you kind of click on a link, it will bring you to this alerts page here. And this is where, for any supplier that I follow that's within my span of control as a sourcing manager, I'm going to get news alerts, which we automatically associate with those suppliers and other topics, locations, commodities, etc. And then I'm going to get a digest of those every day. And you can see that I've subscribed to this, which means I'm going to get, that email is going to come through to me and link me straight through to the relevant alerts. Now, the reason that I am concerned about this is there's one alert in particular for a supplier that I know is particularly important as well, that's just literally come through today. And this is real news that's actually just happened, where Bosch is the supplier that I'm concerned about. And I can see here that they've just reported a 33% drop in operating profit. And they were already under all sorts of pressures, including financial. It's a massive company, but still, we have a big contract with them. And so that's something that I absolutely need to look into. So you can see here that there's a little button that says Bosch. That will, if I click on that, that's going to take me through to the company profile. But I've actually just loaded that here ready as well. And so, and here we are on the company profile. So what this is we've got a page essentially for Bosch, and this collects all of the different data that we have from hundreds of different sources into one place and makes it really, really easy to access. Of course, I'm not going to go through all of that data right now because I've got a very specific problem in mind. I can see all of the alerts coming through here, but we've got all of these different categories of data across the top. Now, in particular, this one was about financials. And so I'm going to hop into that tab straight away, and I'm going to look at some of the historicals that we've got for Bosch on financials. And I've got everything from credit scores up here, right down to detailed financial statements that Bosch has filed, income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. And then another thing that Craft does, which is extremely useful for risk, is we automatically calculate all of these financial ratios for you. And there's some of these that I'm particularly concerned about. I'm looking at this quick ratio number, for example, which is to do with the liquidity that Bosch has. And whilst it's looking okay is above 1, basically. The fact that they've just reported a 33% drop in profits, and if I scroll a little bit down, we're going to see what their EBIT margin actually is. It's already only 4.9%. That's something I'm going to be concerned about. Another reason I might be concerned is if I go into this performance tab here, what this is doing is bringing in data from my ERP system that enables me to contextualize what I'm seeing. And that's anything from the facilities that we use, the performance that we're seeing from Bosch, right down to the parts that we source from them, right? And there's one particular flag up here that makes me think that this is something I need to look into immediately. I can see it's a critical spend supplier, and we've got a single source part here and a lot of other parts that they support. So this is definitely something that I'm going to need to follow up on. And to do that, all I need to do is I could just open up this little panel here, and there's a tab called Cases. And then if I click on New Case, what that's going to do is bring up a form where I can log anything that I want here. So let's log financial reporting is 33% down. Or whatever, and I can start to mention people. Like I know that, for example, the CPO is definitely going to see this pretty soon, and others in the organization, and I want to make sure that everybody knows I'm on top of this. And so I'm going to mention Seb, the CPO, and say, hey, I'm looking into this, etc.
And as you're doing this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, direct spend, a lot of that's managed through the ERP and other systems. For indirect spend, it's managed through usually source to pay platforms. You might have transactions, events, a lot going on around these suppliers. How does this integrate to those systems, and how do you take action if, you know, a risk comes up, but you know, there's activities in other systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess there's a couple of different questions there. One is how do we bring in data from those systems to put things into context, right? And what we do is we bring that in via integrations to, you know, SAP and other systems, S2P systems as well. And we're going to have multiple of these. And then we display that information alongside all of the other third-party data that we have. And that allows us to put things into context. So if Bosch gets into financial difficulties, for example, then I know immediately which parts are going to be affected by that, right?
So let's use that example. The integration, I'm sure, I know you guys can integrate. I'm not concerned with that. It's more of, okay, that part has an issue. There could be sourcing events with that part. There could be orders going out on that part.
Yeah.
How do you interact with systems when action needs to be taken? Because obviously, whether it's direct or indirect, there's activities that your system is going to surface that need to be taken. Actions need to be taken outside of your system. So curious how customers, you know, especially our people on the line, they're going to have SAP or Oracle. They're going to have a Coupa, a Ariba, a Jagger, a GP, one of those systems. You know, what do they do if they find this? They have to take action. Is there integrations, or does it just tell you which systems to go to? Or
yeah, so we absolutely can. We can integrate with the workflow as well. But what I'm primarily going to do is just start a case here, you know, saying profit down or whatever it might be. But I can also have this set up so that, well, first it's going to bring in the news article that this is associated with. But not only can I mention people like I just showed you, but I can also have distribution lists for this that are automatically assigned, so that if I start to create a case here and I assign it a high priority, and let's say I assign that to Seb, right? Then that can automatically notify other folks that are that need to know, essentially, because they have some stake in Bosch as a supplier. And I'll show you in a moment how all of that works in terms of permissions. But does that kind of answer your question? I mean, this can also, obviously, the workflow for this is gonna spit out data, and that data can be consumed by whichever other systems might be relevant, be that S2P or you know, ERP systems, payment systems, whatever those might be.
okay,
Yeah. So let's have a look. Let's imagine that we've created our case here, right? And rather than take you through the whole workflow for doing that, I'll show you one that we've done previously, because you can see there's been quite a few issues with Bosch. And if I open one of these cases up right now, you'll see that we've actually got an ongoing investigation with Bosch, which plenty of people are already involved in, which is to do with the EU sustainability regulation that's coming out, CSRD and CSDDD, where somebody in our ESG team has detected a risk related to forced labour. And so you can see the entire history of that case here, including any emails that have been sent to the supplier all of which are captured directly on the form here, and any tasks that are outstanding as well. So I can have individual tasks assigned to different people, right? And this has also been tagged with a particular regulation, and that's important from a compliance perspective, that whichever solution is doing this is able to do that. So that's just one example. You know, we can see that we've got an ongoing investigation going on with Bosch about this issue. Now, I mentioned earlier that, or there was a question about, okay, how do other systems get notified about this, and how does kind of Craft know which parts of the business might be affected? And for that, I'm going to actually hop into another tab called Portfolios. And what portfolios are, because I'm a sourcing manager for electronics, these are basically lists of suppliers that matter to me because they're in my span of control. We can monitor, and we do monitor, hundreds of thousands of suppliers, of course, but I only want to know about the ones that are relevant to me. So during the implementation, we'll understand how that maps inside an organization, and then we'll assign those portfolios to individuals. Now, I can share this with other people ad hoc if I want to, and if that's enabled, as you can see, I can even create my own. But at an enterprise level, these are sort of defined by the way that we manage suppliers as an organization. And so that means that any portfolio that Bosch is in, for example, this one here, contract manufacturing, and they can be in multiple, because you can see they're also in critical components. Anybody that needs to know about anything that's going on with Bosch is going to have access to this portfolio, and will therefore see all of the cases and alerts and data that I was just seeing. So it kind of keeps everybody all on the same page. The other place that this kind of shows up as a concept is when it comes to monitoring risk data, not just alerts, but all of the other types of risk data that we have. And I'll show you where that lives. We've got another tab here called Risk Hub. And what Risk Hub does is it takes all of the data that we have about suppliers. Some of that relates to risks, some of it doesn't. And every organization has a different idea of what risk is. And so what Risk Hub does is creates a model on top of that that's specific to our client, that creates some sort of thresholds and categories of data that I care about in particular. And we can have multiple of these as well. And in this case, we can see, okay, these are all of my portfolios down the left-hand side, and we care about ESG, security, and financials. And then if I open up one of these, you can see that the financial risk is composed of all of these other detailed risk metrics, and they could be ratios, they could be credit ratings, and so on. And so that allows me to do something really sophisticated when it comes to monitoring risk over time, right? And I can look at this at a portfolio level. I can also look at all of the companies that are contributing to that score. And so here I mentioned quick ratio earlier. You can see that that's starting to trend down for Bosch. And if I open that up, I can actually look at that risk over time as well and see kind of what's happening to that.
Piers, I'm gonna have to stop you there, unfortunately, because we won't have time to get your N-tier scenario, but I'm sure people can get in touch if you've piqued their interest on that. But that I think it's very interesting, right, in terms of being able to have a central place where crises emerge and also are coordinated, because we know people can start running around like chickens with their heads cut off, right? So just having said that, let me kick it over to Gabe for a tough question here, and we'll start to wrap up the show.
Yeah, I'll make it real quick. Obviously risk is everywhere in the supply chain. We see it in the news all the time. But there's also a million different risk solutions out there and I think part of it's because there's so many nuances of risk. So how are your customers justifying a risk solution, and how do they pick which is the right one? Because there's not one that fits every single scenario depending on vertical. So we'd love to hear what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge that our customers have also presented to us in the past, which is when they've historically taken on a risk solution, within a short span of time, something new has happened, or there's been a disaster, or there's been a pandemic that wasn't expected. All these things have kind of come along, has made them think about risk differently. And so one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on is being able to be adaptable and kind of assuming that where we are today is not where we're going to be in 3 years from now. And we achieved that through a couple of different things. One is by continuing to look for best of breed data partners and integrating their data into Craft. Every customer doesn't need everything we have, but we want to give them the options in case that's the direction of travel for that particular organization. And then, of course, if the amount of data is increasing so much and we've got so much available, we have to continue to think in an intelligent way around how we cut and slice and dice and present the data. And that's absolutely one of the reasons why we're kind of heading towards this new agentic technology process.
Great, thank you.
And very quickly, I'll bring up the ProcureTech market map as well. So I think it was clear from what you showed us as well, right? You really play in the risk space, in that SRM life cycle, right? And I believe, based on your answer you just gave Gabe as well, like you're going deep in that space, right? Not from a roadmap standpoint, you're not trying to go wide, but really deep.
Precisely that. We want to ensure that as a provider of supplier risk intelligence, and ultimately that evolves towards supplier resiliency, we want to be able to provide all of the information that any one of our customer needs, but then also to be able to remediate the risk, get themselves back to status quo as soon as possible, whether that's through going and finding a different supplier, whether that's through executing a plan to reduce the risk, whatever it may be. We want to provide that centralized space for them to be able to do that.
And I see a really cool future for you in that agentic AI layer where it's like, to Gabe's earlier points around, once I have a case open, like, we've all been there, right? You open a case on a risk or something happens, and then you got to bring the, all the mafia bosses to the table. And we got to figure out what we're going to do and like bring a mini project plan together. And if you're able to do that with the support of agentic AI, with all the data sources you have access to, I think you could probably craft that response a lot faster. So that's very interesting to me.
Precisely. And, one of the things that we often hear from customers is that we need to go step by step in terms of the amount of risks that we track, because ultimately, if we start to have the data there's so much more work for us to do. And our view and position is that if agents can do some of the low-hanging fruit, or at least do some of the initial checks, it means that the high-value actions can be taken by those working in procurement.
Very cool. And so as we wrap up the show here, Seb, Piers, thanks so much for coming on. Where is the best place for people to find you if they want to learn more?
Fantastic. Yes, please reach out. Obviously, we just showed a very small piece of Craft today, so we'd love to be able to provide a more tailored demo. Our website is www.craft.co, or please email me or Piers. Our email addresses are very simple, seb@craft.co or piers@craft.co.
Very cool. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, guys. If you're watching the Road to the ProcureTech Cup, you want to stay in touch, you can join the Pure Procurement newsletter. I put the QR code up on screen if you want to scan and stay in touch until the tournament and watch the other providers as we go through here. Otherwise, Gabe and I both operate in the ProcureTech consulting space. So if you need help crafting that roadmap, creating that new operating model that's tech-enabled, tech-supported with the type of things you're seeing here on the show as we go on week to week, you know where to reach us as well on LinkedIn. So everybody, Piers, Seb, Gabe, thanks so much for being here again this week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Have a great weekend.
Great.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.